Welcome back to Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Kyle Torgerson in studio. Today is Wednesday, March 7th. We have a number of great topics on the show today. President Trump just hours ago was talking at the Latino Coalition, so we'll have a few of his comments for you. We'll also visit about the Better Business Bureau and kind of what it is and isn't. A lot of people put faith in that organization for years, and we'll share with you a few things that you might not have known. Also, what happened at the Oscars, or almost who cares? there were some issues there, so we'll talk about what happened in the news there too. So Kyle, kick us off with what's going on in the weather.
Well, Thursday and Friday, it'll be raining with 51 degrees, but today it's high 50s. And it's going to be mostly cloudy, but there will be some sun peeking through. Rest of the week will be sunny Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And Tuesday and Wednesday, it looks like it'll be raining again.
And I love the fact that we're seeing approaching the 70-degree mark there on Monday. 68 degrees, the expected high. I'll tell you what, yesterday was gorgeous outside. Yeah,
I took an opportunity to go play tennis, and I am sore. I love it, though. It's nice.
You get to run around and make a fool of yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, when I think about people in sports making a fool of themselves or kind of humiliating themselves, you maybe aren't old enough to remember. Do you remember when a athlete by the name of Ricky Barnes, he was an Olympian. This was in 2009, so this might have been a little young for you.
Yeah, I was like 10.
He was swimming in a heat for the Olympics and jumps off the board to go into the water, and just as he goes into the water, his whole back end of his swimsuit splits all the way down to his knees, exposing his rear end for the whole audience. So he did suffer a little bit of humiliation, but he managed to crack into the medal round.
That's cool.
My dry sense of humor. All right, sorry. So let's go on to President Trump. He was speaking at the Latino Coalition. This was just hours ago. Let's share a few minutes of his comments there with our audience.
Okay.
All right. They would not have believed it. Today we have more Hispanic Americans working than ever before in our history, setting records. New jobless claims have hit a 48-year low last week. And last year, the Hispanic unemployment rate reached the lowest level in history. Congratulations. And I'm proud to report Hispanic unemployment has now remained at or below 5% for the longest period of time ever recorded. You're doing very well. That's good. Consumer confidence is at an 18-year high. Business confidence is through the roof, with a record number of small business owners saying that now is a good time to expand. And by the way, we're going to keep your playing field level so that we don't have outside interests coming in and hurting our country, which they've been doing. They've been doing a lot of that over the last 25 years, and we're doing a lot of things to stop that. And you're seeing that actually already in the numbers. That's why these numbers have been so good, or great, I might add. Latino-owned businesses now make up more than 10% of all businesses in the United States, providing jobs for more than 2 million American workers. These businesses contributed nearly $500 billion to our economy last year alone. Latinos are also starting new businesses at 3 times the national average. That's pretty good, 3 times. Mm-hmm. The American economy is coming back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and Latino businesses are helping to lead the way. You're paving the path. At the center of America's resurgence are the massive tax cuts I just signed into law. Now that is a lot of money in your pockets, no matter where you're coming from.
All right, let's cut it there. All right, so that was President Trump at the Latino Coalition. You can actually go to the YouTube channel for the White House and pick up the entire presentation if you'd like to. But some pretty good news you had to share with the Latino community there.
Absolutely, yeah. I just posted the link to it in the comments, so if you'd like to check it out yourself, it's in the comments.
All right, very good. Well, let's have a little conversation about the Better Business Bureau, shall we?
Yeah.
Kyle, what do you know as a young man? What do you know about the Better Business Bureau?
Well, being a young man, I do not know much, but from research
about anything or about the Better Business Bureau?
I'd say about anything. No, just from researching it, it looks like it used to be a big deal. It used to, yeah, it used to be a big deal, but not so much anymore because there is a reason why. And
yeah, exactly. People are understanding. See, the BBB used to have, you could go up and down Main Street in pretty much any community, and you'd see member of the Better Business Bureau on the windows and doors of these stores everywhere. And now you don't see so much of that anymore. Let's bring this article up on this was actually not a recent happening, but it's an indication of what has happened on a larger scale. Pull it over to the right so the rest of that text shows up on the screen behind us. All right, so this was actually an article that was published a while ago. This was a situation that was going on in Los Angeles, but this was in the Southland, California, or yeah, that's where BBB of Southland, which served the greater Los Angeles area. The expulsion stems back to a pay-to-play scandal unearthed in 2010 by the ABC News show 2020. So they did a lot of this stuff going into communities and looking, and they found that the BBB was essentially giving members. So if somebody signed up and paid the $425 fee to be a member of the Better Business Bureau, they got a rating with the BBB. And businesses who said, nah, I'm not going to do that, I'm not a member, they got a very subpar rating from the Better Business Bureau. Now, what did the BBB know about these people who weren't members? Nothing. What did they know about the businesses that were members? Nothing. Except one little minor detail is they paid a membership fee. So what has always been true of the Better Business Bureau is that it is a member organization. Don't forget that. Who pays the fees and the dues to the Better Business Bureau?
the members.
The members. So who do they protect, do you think?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. The members.
The members. Yes, they do. They protect the members, the people that are paying them, just like a business protects their customers, just no different. And so when people complain, so if you're on our listening audience and you've had an issue going on with a company or whatever, you can waste your time filing a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. But especially if this business is a member, expect the Better Business Bureau to rule on their side. Better Business Bureau also offers arbitration services to their members, so you can hire them to be an arbitrator. And if you have a business that, let's say you're doing a contract with them, whatever, and they lock you into doing arbitration with the Better Business Bureau, which does happen and has happened a lot, the company that is the member will win every single time in Better Business Bureau arbitration. So yeah, it's a member organization designed to protect members, gets money from members, $425 for the fee. And other people, there's been all kinds of conversation around the country about other companies even throwing some more money at the Better Business Bureau to give them a A++ rating, whatever. So it's all a big, turned into a bogus thing. So it may have been legitimate at one given time. This Catherine Hutt, who is a spokesperson for the Council of Better Business Bureau, said that the incident in this article was a isolated situation. Wrong. It's going on all around the country to lesser or greater extents. So we're going to move on from the Better Business Bureau and talk about the Oscars. I'll tell you what I said in the beginning, well, maybe who cares? Do you know that the rating they just had, down 20% just from last year? Do you know when's the last time they had a rating this low?
No, I do not.
1974.
I was not born then.
Which was the first time Nielsen actually rated the show. So that is the lowest rating since 1974. Do you have any clue why the rating might be as low as it is and why it continues to go down?
Well, there's probably a number of things. Probably just like what's going on in Hollywood now with the Me Too movement and all the scandals going on. A lot of people are getting kind of tired of how they're kind of pushing their ideology against other
ideology.
People. Yes,
that pushing their ideology. Yeah, exactly.
Pushing their views. Also, like I read that they were pushing. So, like, instead of the movies that were doing really well, they were putting movies that were that kind of fit their views to be nominated instead of like the ones that are making bank. You know, the ones that were like the best, the ones selling the most tickets. Instead, they're doing the ones that fit their views better. Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of funny. They have become, like, you even see pictured here just over my shoulder, Mr. Jimmy Kimmel in the picture. He's become one of the really popular comedians. The guy actually isn't even funny anymore. Pictured as one of the popular comedians there. And Jimmy Kimmel has become so political. I remember when he was an up-and-coming guy back in 2006 and just making his way. There's a couple of maiden shows they attempted to launch with Jimmy Kimmel that pancake didn't work out. I was actually there at the time that he was attempting to get some of these things going, and didn't pan out. I was actually not all that impressed with him. He has grown and matured a lot as an individual since then. However, he has gone totally political. So not only are the Oscars way down, but Jimmy Kimmel's show is way down, Fallon's show is way down, a number of them. And it's because they have so politicized what they're doing. The guy we just had on a moment ago making comments at the Latino coalition, President Trump, he's their favorite target for the negativity and everything else that they espouse on the show. So they're paying a price because Americans are seeing what's happening in the country and liking what they're seeing what's happening in the country. And Hollywood's just very clearly out of touch with America. Oscars deserve to be down 20%. Hopefully they're down another 20% next year and another 20% the following year, and it just continues.
Maybe they'll get the picture just like, oh, this is correlating. I wonder what's going on.
I kind of don't think so. I mean, even mainstream media is not seeing that. They're going down in a spiral and have been for some time. But last year, the year prior, during the elections, when they went so blatantly political with everything they're doing. We're going to talk here in a moment. You have a clip that you're going to share from Sheriff Israel, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that before we get to it, because I want to mention just a couple things. You can take this Oscars thing off the screen. I'm tired of seeing Jimmy Kimmel. I used to enjoy some of his shows. I don't watch anything he puts up anymore these days. Just a very not funny, boring guy anymore, and I'm not interested in his politics. So anyway, to speak a little bit about this Sheriff Israel. So everybody's familiar with the school shooting that took place down in Broward County in Florida on February 15th. So I want to say a couple things before you see this video. Excuse me. The day after, on February 16th, the city manager from Coral Springs got in Sheriff Israel's face and said, "Why were our officers in the school ahead of your deputies?" So one day after the shooting, it is known by Sheriff Israel, by the city manager, and by the police officer in Coral Springs that not only did his deputy who was on site fail to go into the school, but also the 3 deputies who showed up from the sheriff's department also failed to go into the school. So this is either an example of extreme cowardice, which that's what I'm leaning on. It was the wrong protocol, or they're told to stand down somewhere in there. But I'll tell you what, when you talk to retired law enforcement officers or anybody around the country who knows anything about this sort of thing, there's one way you deal with a active shooter situation: swiftly and effectively. There is no other way. And dealing with having this, it's completely different when somebody's inside of a building shooting no one and is taking hostages. Now you set up a situation to try to negotiate a peaceful release of the people. The minute if you noticed anywhere, if there has ever been a hostage situation, the first time you hear a shot or somebody being shot inside them, what does the SWAT team, what do the police do who are on site? What do they do immediately?
I guess they swarm in.
Storm the building. They are in there immediately if there's a shot. The only way the person taking somebody as a hostage even has a chance of not being shot and taken out by the police is by release and negotiating a peaceful release. Violence starts to happen in there, they're in the building instantly. That's exactly what these deputies should have been. So, but going back, I want to point out, Sheriff Israel knew as a matter of fact that his 3 deputies, besides the on-site guy, did not enter the building. For 4 minutes, Coral Springs officers show up. They're the first one in the building. What the city manager was in the sheriff's face about is he said, why was it our city police who arrived after your deputies? Why were they the first ones in the building? So, and then since this, so I want to just throw a couple other things at our audience to consider. In leadership, when you're talking about good leadership, in leadership, good leaders always embrace 3 things very resoundingly. It's ownership. They take ownership for what occurred. They're accountable. They're responsible. No questions asked. Ownership, accountability, responsibility. People who are not effective leaders blame others, make excuses, and they're in denial of the truths. You're already going to hear some of the denial game and the pretending not to know when he already knows. But the sheriff makes some somewhat harsh criticism of the deputy who doesn't show up, but then he pretends to not know that his other 3 cops failed to show up. And in other interviews that he had since then, he's blamed everybody other than himself. And in an interview that he had with Jake Tapper on CNN, he says in there that there was excellent leadership on his part in this whole thing. So completely baloney. But listen to this interview. I want you to hear right from the very beginning. We're going to play about 4 or 5 minutes of this. But listen what the sheriff has to say, and listen what this young boy says who's interviewed. We don't often play stuff from CNN, and this time they actually have something that's useful in the way of news. Roll that, Kyle.
Sheriff, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. I want you to take a listen to Stoneman Douglas High School senior Brandon Huff talking about your deputy, the school resource officer, Scott Peterson.
The school resource officer was behind a stairwell wall, just standing there. And he had his gun drawn, and he was just pointing it at the building. And shots started going off inside. You could hear them going off over and over. He was just talking on the radio, and he never did anything for 4 minutes. He's the only one with a gun. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, and he has all that while school security guards, coaches pretty much, were running in, shielding kids.
Sheriff, how do you respond to this student?
All what the students said, our video and audio and all the witness statements we have taken corroborates that. That's what I saw, and when I saw that, I was disgusted. I was just demoralized with the performance of former Deputy Peterson, and that's why I called him in and suspended him without pay as we were going to move towards termination, and he resigned.
Did he tell you
Okay, stop it
why
right there
he
real
didn't
quick.
go in?
Okay, I just want to stop here for a second because I want to point something out. Listen how strong his stance is on this deputy. By the way, this video was published on February 25th, 10 days later after the shooting. He knew the day after that his 3 deputies also failed to go inside the school. Now listen to how he responds when this is pointed out to him. He's going to pretend like he doesn't know.
He did not.
I'm also told by sources in Coral Springs that Coral Springs police who arrived at the scene saw that 3 other Broward deputies were standing behind cars, not having gone into the building. What can you tell me about that?
Well, let me be perfectly clear. Our investigation to this point shows that during this horrific attack, while this killer was inside the school, there was only one law enforcement person, period, and that was former Deputy Scott Peterson. Coral Springs arrived. A group of Coral Springs officers went in within, I think, about 4 minutes. We're projecting after the killer left the campus. I understand that they're going to give statements to us regarding the other 3, 4, 5 deputies. At this point, we have no reason to believe that anyone acted incorrectly or correctly. That's what an investigation is. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but nobody's entitled to their own set of facts. We do know, Jake,
okay, stop it there.
Deputy Peterson at the...
Okay, so listen to what he says. Nobody's entitled to their own opinion, or everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but nobody's entitled to their own set of facts. What is Sheriff Israel doing right now?
With his own facts.
Creating his own facts, because he knows what the facts are. He's already been advised. He's been completely aware of this. This is a guy who's playing nothing but politics at this point and taking no responsibility whatsoever for the failure and the cowardice of his deputies. Now, listen how strongly he talks about this first deputy, and he says how demoralizing that was and everything else. He comes short of calling him a coward, which I think in other interviews or in subsequent days he actually did that. What then about the other 3 deputies? Are they also demoralizing? Are they also cowards? The answer obviously is yes. But he uses this deputy who's on site as the scapegoat for his lack of leadership and the cowardice that obviously he's teaching in the sheriff's department. Now, to be fair, I want to back up just a moment. To be fair, this guy has been in law enforcement for 36 years. I had a chance to read a little bit of his bio. Very respectable stuff. You know what, though? There can come a time in anyone's life and whatnot where that background and everything changes. He's done a lot of good things in Broward County in years past. However, what we're seeing right now is a guy who needs to hang up his badge and walk away from this job, because the guy is a coward. His 3 deputies who responded were cowards. The guy who left and quit, walked away, also is a coward. But he actually did the right thing. He said, you know what, I shouldn't have been here. I'm not suited to be here. Guy resigns and leaves. That's what the other 3 deputies need to do, and that's what this guy needs to do. You know what, though? This brings us to another subject, though, that I did want to make sure that we talked about today, because in our local communities, we have, think about Longview Police, Kelso Police, Kalama, Woodland, Castle Rock. There's a sheriff's departments here. Obviously, there's even state police that patrol this area. And I have posed these questions to some of our local law enforcement, and what kinds of training are the police officers and the deputies actually having? And I'm not saying that they're having the wrong training. What I am saying is that we have a gun range that's up on the north end of the county, just not far out of the Longview-Kelso area, up I-5. And there's an opportunity there to get a MOUT site, which is Military Occupation and Urban Training, is what it's an acronym from the military. But a site similar to that, to be used on that site. I've had conversations with Police Chief Dusha about this, offered to get some of the local business community involved, reach out to some of our armed forces people that are already here, so a combination of veterans and or active Guard Reserve, other people who may be in this area that potentially could help, but offer some OPFORS, opposing force type training as well. But there's a need to make sure that very high-speed training is available to these officers, so that when situations like these come up, I don't think it's a matter of if this ever occurs in our community. I think it's a matter of when it occurs in this community. And I think our law enforcement and people in the community. So I'm really hoping that the situation that's going on the Cowlitz Gun Club, or not Cowlitz Gun Club, but the Cowlitz Shooting Range, because there is a Cowlitz Gun Club which is not actually in this county, interestingly enough. But there's on the Cowlitz Shooting Range, I'm hoping that I think it's the Game, Fish and Wildlife, that they have a lease or something that's going on there. That's all of that right now, though, is in negotiation. I know the county commissioners are involved, but we need to very actively move forward quickly with something to get on that site that we can use to train police officers how to adequately respond to these sort of things, and how to respond to a situation where you have a active shooter. And giving somebody confidence to do that well is creating a place where they can actually have that kind of training. We did it in the military all the time. Every single month that we had training in the Army involved some level of building clearing and dealing with active shooters. I remember one day in particular that we were out on the Mount site, and this building's like 4 stories high, multiple rooms and multiple places for bad guys to hide. We had them all over in the building, and the job of the people entering the building was to clear the bad guys out. Some had hostages, some didn't, whatever. So anyhow, this was the setup. And we had a ton of people there, people outside the building who could take shots at the building if somebody incorrectly silhouetted themselves in an opening. So it's a little different, obviously, when the military is doing it, because you are commonly in a combat situation where you can have a bad guy anywhere. But training to that extent should be given to our local law enforcement, our sheriff's departments, our deputies. And I think these guys, when Sheriff Israel talks about his excellent leadership, I think these deputies would have had a chance to join or into that situation and responded properly had they had the kind of training that he alleges was happening under his excellent training. If these guys if they had this kind of training, they're complete cowards. If they had none of this training, they're still cowards, because just to a lower extent, they should have had some level of training to get into that building. Sheriff Israel, your excellent leadership you allege that you had clearly did not have, and very significant person responsible for the failures of the response. Here's another thing that people may or may not be aware of. How about 45 calls, reports, etc. over the last several years pertaining to this family, and tips. I'm not talking about the tips given to the FBI about this guy. I'm talking about tips given directly to the police, to this man right here in this picture, given to this man, and no follow-up on it whatsoever. So how are you supposed to keep kids safe? How are you supposed to keep the public safe when the sheriff's department itself is falling down on its face and taking care of a guy who was obviously very mentally ill and had a problem? So what does Brandy Smith put up?
How about a free place for teachers too?
You know what, Brandy? I totally agree that teachers, I think even church members, parishioners, etc. in the area, any place where there's an opportunity for a person like a knucklehead, like a mentally ill person like this Nicholas Cruz, who went in and shot this. The reason he goes into the school is he knows or believes there's not somebody there who's going to give him, shoot back at him, and it's an easy target. The building itself is not secure, and there's not people there who can defend themselves with a gun. Isn't that also true of a church? Wouldn't it be true of a hospital? Wouldn't it be true of so when she's talking about teachers, obviously we're mentioning schools, but there's many public places where the same thing exists. I think everybody who is in those kinds of situations should be thinking about that. And the training that I'm talking about in the facility that I'm hoping that we can get moving on here quickly and get built on the range here, the college shooting range, I'm hoping that we can make that available so that teachers can go through it, people who are members of churches can go through it, anybody who is interested in being effectively trained on how to respond to a shooter situation and use their Second Amendment right to take the loser out. Yeah, totally for that. Love to see that happen. Well, other things in the news that we just want to share with you here before we conclude for today. There has been talks that North Korea may actually be caving in to the strong sanctions that are happening there in the northern peninsula, indicating that there could possibly be an end to the nuclear crisis that's there. So I guess we'll see in the coming days if that actually materializes and happens or not, but hopefully it does. Well, anything else on local event stuff that you want to share, Kyle?
Well, there's Rusty Scupper's Pirate Days at Westport, Washington, which is June 22nd through the 24th.
Yes, and you know why that's important to share now, Kyle?
Why?
All the motels and hotels in Westport around this event, June 22nd through 24th, are already booked. If you intend to go to this event, by the way, it is cool. We shared a little video clip on the end of our show from Monday. If you haven't seen it, see it. Or go to YouTube and check out Rusty Scupper's Pirate Days. If you haven't thought about going up to the area, you didn't know the event was even there, check it out. Go watch the video on YouTube. And I think you'll find it's a very family-friendly, great place for people to go and have a really good time. I'm hoping, because we have enough pirates in this area, I'm hoping that maybe we could have a Pirate Days of this type possibly down the road here too. So, all right, well, that concludes our show here on Northwest Digital News. As always, thanks for joining us. If you like what we do here on the show and you'd like to become a contributor to the show, to support it, you can go to Patreon. You can make a donation there as little as $1 if you'd like. So you can go to Patreon and contribute to the show if you'd like. You can also find us on YouTube, on Twitch, Facebook group, Facebook page, and we have several other social media platforms that are coming as well. So we're broadcasting, our coverage is continuing to expand. So thanks again for joining us here on Northwest Digital News. And a hello to my uncle and aunt, Thelma and Reno Lato, who are probably watching today. Ray is our oldest fan, 96 years old, watching Northwest Digital News. Glad to have you on board, Ray. All right, I'm Kevin Hunter with Kyle Torgerson. Until next time, take care.